welcome to the RTO Show. I'm your host, Pete Shau. Listen, I'm talking to you today with my producer, Anthony. We want to talk to you a little bit about what's going on in D.C. Before we do, I want you guys to know only half of you that are listening to me right now, you guys aren't subscribed. You need to hit the subscribe button, hit that little bell,
guys,
subscribe. You need to know what's going on, especially with events like this that we're going to be talking about today. I've got Amberlee Maya on here. Unbelievable. She actually decided to show up today. First time, I'm so excited. And a regular who's probably going to be the co-host of the show pretty soon, Charles Smitherman of APRO. Listen, guys, it's great to see you. Great to talk to you. I want you guys to know right now, if you guys like the content like they do, please go on there. Make sure that you leave a review, whether it's Spotify, whether it's Apple Podcasts. Leave a review. That way, Amberlee and Charles know that you love them and you want to see them again, right? All right. Listen, guys, we are going to talk about LegCon 2026. This is the legislative conference that we do in D.C. Now, some of you listening have probably seen this before, but this one was a huge event. I think Charles invited all of his family and friends, and then Amberlee got on there and made it happen. We had probably the best, I actually, hands down, was probably one of the best events I've had this year. I actually enjoyed it immensely. Not only that, it was a great venue, but we'll talk about that a little bit. First off, Charles, Mr. PhD himself, JD, the CEO of APRO, you're doing an amazing job. Every time that I go to a new event, I want to tell you, man, there's people out there that are saying this is the new wave. And I think Amberlee has a lot to do with that. So it's good to have you guys on. Talk to me a little bit about, what you guys saw this year. I mean, talk to me a little bit about LegCon 2026, the most amazing one we've had yet.
Yeah, thanks, Pete, for having us on the show again.
Yeah, no, listen, I wish I could have you guys on all the time. We can do like a four-way. We can do like a four-way thing. I'm telling you, it's awesome. But yeah, no, seriously. I mean, this event was not only better; it was really put together. And I really want to say, like, there was several people that I've seen year after year that have been to this that said this was probably the best time that they've had. And there's a lot of things that I want to get into because there were people that I didn't know were there. There were different part of the industry that I didn't know that were there. So we'll talk about that. Great people that I saw. I think we had a heartfelt discussion at the end, the debrief dinner, but we'll go into, really as far as LegCon goes, this LegCon was different. What did you see when you were getting this together, and how did we get this together this year that made such a big difference?
Well, I mean, a few things. I think one, it's great to hear that kind of feedback. You always want to, every year we're hoping to be better than the last one. And so we really do take the feedback, the input that we get on board, and we're constantly trying to make it better. So I would agree. I think this was just a great one. It went really well. The venue was good. But a number of things we really did that had a lot of intentionality of, we had set a goal. We wanted to get 100 people to attend. And it's been a long time since we've had that many people show up. And in fact, you'd have to go past like recent memory to find when we've had 100 before. And so that was, and at that point, I think we were actually pushing federal legislation there. So it was, there was a huge rallying call to get people there. But with that, we had to set that goal for 100. We also were in our third iteration of the Legislative Fellows Program, which was has continued to be a big success as we train our future generation of advocates, and they can learn from our legends, our experienced people that have been doing this for a long time, and they can go walk the halls with them and see how that they do it. So I think it's really a few of those things. Our government relations committee is just so active. It's the model committee. I would put that up against any committee, any other association, about how well that one is run and how focused it is on doing these things. And so when you've got that kind of support coming from the board, you've got the support of the committee, that leadership, and then you've got just the amazing staff we've got at APRO, with Amberlee being just a huge part of showing and demonstrating everything that we do. So just everything kind of coming together, and then I think our focus on, we wanted to do it better. And so this is the best year until the next one is the way we kind of approach things.
Well, you guys got to understand the way this came together. There was a lot that happened before this year. So, LegCon being our legislative conference, we get together in DC and everybody advocates for the industry. As we're doing that, and when this all culminates throughout the year, we had a couple of things that happened. Number one, we're talking about it as much as we can on the podcast, right? We want to get people out there. We want them to get them to understand what we do, why we do it, and why it matters so much. Then there was a book, The RTO Revolution, that comes out by Charles Smitherman himself and Wildbrand's director, Ryan Krass, right? To put this together because this is a history of what we have going on in the industry. On top of that, I've got this new Forge messaging situation that came out, which is now like it's starting to get full steam. I'm getting messages on that. People are kind of understanding that's where the APRO voices are. That's where the RTO legends are. And I can't say that this didn't all happen with Amberlee being there somewhere. This is like this ecosystem that all comes together. How did this, Amberlee, you are the director of marketing and communications. And I want to say, by the way, you're doing an amazing job. How did have this come together? Like, were you a part of that? And what was the idea to make this streamline and work to get all these, 100 people? Been the best in years. That's not a small feat. And to say that I don't think that we're going to be able to hold it down next year. I think we're going to be way over 100 next year. Because the thing is, the more people that come, the more people know about it. And there was a lot of people that came first time this year. Again, how long we've been doing this? Almost 25. Well, I don't know. Shannon, 23, 24, 20, so many years. But the thing is that, in doing that, they get to tell people who they know, this is what I got to do. This is what I got to be a part of. This is the advocacy effort that we were doing. And really, like, when you have all that basically that ecosystem coming together, is that a good reason why we hit those numbers this year?
Yeah, I think the fellow part is a big part of it, just because we had, I think 33 new people this year between the fellowships, the advocacy partners, and then additional first timers that wanted to come and have their voice be heard too. So, you've got like you said, during the debrief dinner, you talked about the legends walking alongside the new people and getting, learning from each other. Everybody can learn up and learn down. And it's just a great opportunity to make your voice heard.
So, Charles, talking about success, when we say the word 33, there are 33 new first-time attendees that showed up this year, right? That is a big number. A third of us were brand new to what's going on. Does that say that we're getting the message across and we're doing what we need to do to get the LegCon thought, the advocacy out there? Is this a checkered flag to say, yeah, we're getting there. We beat this one. Next one, we got to do better?
Yeah, I think that's really where the growth is happening. We do a thing at the debrief dinner where we do a recognition where we give, we give pins to people that have come for a certain number of years. We recognize those that have been coming for 5 years, 10 years, 15. We had a couple of, 20, there are two people in the lead that right at 23. Well, I think Shannon took it at 24 this year, maybe 25 or whatever that number is. But
24.
we have a core group that believes in this, and they've been doing this for a long time, and they come back every year. People like Shannon Strunk with his 24 years, people like Larry Carrico, 23 years, Brad Dennison's 22 years. We've got this core group. They're going to come because they know and understand it and they believe it. And I think it is one of those conferences or events that if you come once, you buy into it. You understand what we're trying to talk about, what Amberlee's putting out with communications. It comes across and you understand when you get there. And so a key to continue to, one, sustain this, because our industry is getting older. When, the people that have been coming for a long time are not going to be able to come forever. And so we need those new people to be coming in and eventually becoming the experienced people. And so that's a core part of what we're doing. And I'd say sustainability is the key on that, in trying to do that. So yeah, having a third of our participants brand new, first time, is pretty incredible, because it's a big ask. We get it. It's an ask to come to DC, take time out of your schedule, travel in the middle of the week because we need to be up there on a Wednesday or Thursday to meet with our congressional members, and it is a thing, and so we get that, but it's also one, I think once you do it once, you want to go back.
Well, I got to say, the first time I was hooked. And I plan on being back every year. And Amberlee, talking about some of the things that the ecosystem produced on top of 33 people, I'm getting regular, newsletters every single week. I get one from APRO that says, hey, this is what's going on in the RTO world. I get one from Charles now. Dr. Charles Smitherman sends something out. Listen, not only is he a triathlon athlete, he has some good words to say. I get that all the time. Is that part of creating the ecosystem and letting people know what's going on and saying, hey, this is part of what we do, the advocacy, getting there? And now that you have these ways to like this constant information that's coming out, how well is that being received as you've seen it?
Well, I mean, in the last 7-8 months or so, we've doubled our content at a minimum. We've at least doubled it. So, a lot of that has to do with our generative engine optimization AI platform that we're doing, but trying to get the message out there so that when the legislators are out there trying to Google us and figure out what's going on, or go to ChatGPT or any of the other platforms, that they get the truth about the industry and what we're doing. So that's been a big part of that. And then it also just helps the members as well see what we're doing, and that we're taking active steps to improve the industry and make sure that our voices are heard. So I think it encourages them to want to be a part of it. And specifically the younger generation, the newer generation's excited to see it.
Yes.
And,
but I've seen the footprint of APRO grow online. I mean, it's grown tremendously to being something that was probably, I want to say a little passive to. Now it's there. It's something that you see all the time. It's been a progressive mark that I think has really made a difference. Also, the fact that when we have a third of the people that weren't there at any time before show up now, I think it's really getting the message out. And I love that, because this is the opportunity for you, whoever you are out there, to understand that this is open to you. If you work for a dealer or a vendor and you want to go to this, please contact us at rtohq.org and make sure that you have the information in front of you. Come to this event. You will not be the same afterwards. I wasn't, and I can tell you right now, I enjoyed that. But I want to get into a little bit. Can you talk to me a little bit about, so that if I'm listening for the first time, there are 33 new people out there. We want to expand out. What does a day in LegCon look like? So there's a dinner beforehand, right? There's a dinner the day before. We kind of get together. We kind of talk to each other a little bit. You get to meet your team, see what's going on. But now it's the day of. So we started with a really big heavy hitter in the morning, and then we kind of took our day all the way through the Capitol. We're literally, Anthony, we missed you. We were walking on the steps of DC. I mean, this is monumental, especially to people who've never done this before. Charles, can you walk me through how that day gets set up, and the importance, why we set it up that way, and more off, who was it that we talked to first thing in the morning?
Well, it's a busy day. You're going to get your steps in when you go, and so we spend a considerable amount of time setting up meetings. That's one thing that I think we're doing now that has really made this process a lot easier than compared to 5-10 years ago, when we left that to the member. So the ask was not just to come to DC, but setting up your own meetings too. We're taking that off your plate now. We want people to set up meetings if you have a personal relationship or some type of relationship with your member. But we're really taking a lot of that on. Lisa Krabenhoft, our director of events, does an absolutely incredible job with that. I can tell you, I've done fly-in days like this with other industries, and it's not just because I've got this patch right here on my chest. I'm not just saying that. We do it better than anything I've ever been a part of. And Lisa's a big part of that and making that happen. So we typically, we bring everybody in, we have the reception the night before. It's a lot of this conference really is about networking with the group. We limit the number of vendors that come in. You have to sponsor to be a part of it on the vendor side. And so that does limit the number of our associate members that get to come. But then we have, it's just a good networking the night before, getting us ready for the next day. We do a breakfast. We like to bring a keynote speaker in, someone that works, whether it's a legislator, a regulator, which is what we had this year with the deputy director from the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, Jeff Gradler. So we had our breakfast, and then we went over, took a photo at the Capitol. I think I've got a couple of those from years class behind me.
There they are. I just want you to know I'm somewhere in there. Not that you can find me without a magnifying glass, but in case you're looking, Anthony, I'm right there to the right behind the third person. So we have him come in. I mean, he's so just so you guys are aware, there was a couple of years where we were worried about the CFPB. Now they're not, but it speaks volumes to say that we have enough people that actually showed up that they would come to us, sit down and have an open conversation, when at one time we were worried about being on the table and served up to everybody else. And then now he gets to come in, sit down and talk to us. And you got to sit with him and kind of have a good conversation about what we're looking at in the future and where we land in all of this. And I believe that we are in the clear is what I heard.
Well, I think, it's been a consistent thing since that bureau was set up back in, I think it was legislation passed in around 2010. So it's been around for a while. We were specifically excluded from that, but there have always been, as regulators like to do, they try to branch out from their jurisdiction sometimes. And so that agency, particularly in prior administrations, has really tested the boundaries of it, and has where we've had to push back and remind them why that it's so important. The rent to own is not a credit transaction, and all of those elements as to why it is not, and it really being the ultimate flexible transaction that you can return at any time for any reason whatsoever. And so that's an important distinction we have to continue to reiterate. And that's really a large part of why we go to DC. It's not just the CFPB. It's to make sure and maintain those relationships, remind our legislators as to who we are and what we do, because and I think that if you've been there, if you've done this before, you know this, if we're not out there defining ourselves, someone else will. And if someone else is doing that, it's not going to be the favorable, a really honest, truthful approach that we do. And we know we're the authorities on this. We're the ones that should be spreading that message and doing it. And so that's a large part of what we're doing, establishing those relationships, maintaining those relationships with our legislators, with their staff. And in this case, establishing a relationship with the regulator to really be clear, hey, you're not our regulator. Our regulators are the 47 states and those legislators across the country, not the bureau in DC. And so it was good to have a really good conversation with the deputy director, just about what their priorities are, what they're doing, what that agency looks like today compared to 3 years ago, 5 years ago. And it was an interesting thing. I mean, I know their activities have been something I've certainly followed since really their inception. And they've done a lot of things, and they've done a lot of good things. It's hard to say, some of the things that they have done, or when they're really going after abusive practices that some financial institutions have engaged in, that those are positive things. And that's an element of that agency and the importance of having that consumer protection. I think we're for consumer protection and rent to own. That's why we have our state statutes. That's why we have all those disclosures that we follow. That's why we have all these best practices we promoted at APRO. So it's good to have that kind of conversation and really share what we're doing at APRO and for the industry to help self-regulate, so we don't need someone trying to come in from DC on the federal level in an area that they don't belong in.
Hey everyone, it's Pete Shau here from the RTO Show Podcast, and I want to tell you about a company that's making a real difference in the rent-to-own space, Wow Brands. I've seen firsthand how they approach marketing, and let me tell you, it's not just about ads. Wow Brands builds complete digital ecosystems designed specifically for the rent-to-own industry. Their e-commerce and lead generation strategies are built to bring in qualified leads. And did I mention that they are actively working with the rent-to-own industry while also being members of APRO and TRIB? Listen, these folks are passionate problem solvers. They don't just slap something together. They design, build, and scale the kind of digital retail tools your business needs and your customers actually want. So if you're serious about growing, reach out to Wow Brands at wowbrands.com. I trust them, and I think you will too. So then after this breakfast and after this meet and greet, we sit down, talks are happening between Charles and the CFPB, the deputy director. So then after that, we all go take a picture, which is something a little bit different this year. We decided to take a picture up front, first instead of afterwards, which you know what, I'm not going to complain. I really did enjoy that. And you can see me on there somewhere in there. I'm in that picture. I think it was on the first row this time, so you don't have to look hard. But besides playing Where's Waldo, then we actually have our meetings, right? So we go into our meetings, and your meeting is set up, like you said, by Lisa Kravinoff, and it's basically based on the area that you're in and what you represent. So if you have a township that has your stores or the company that you work for or the area that you help, those are going to be the people that you're going to see. So as you're seeing them, and Amberlee gets to go and be a part of this. Now, I've never had Charles going around with me, but I have had Amberlee in the group of ours. So Amberlee, tell me a little bit, like when we go to have these conversations, we're advocating, we're basically saying, hey, this is who we are, this is what we represent, right? These are the tax dollars, these are the people that in your constituents in your area, the people that really are part of the community that we help serve and is in your locations. How do those conversations go? What does advocacy sound like where you got these people in the room that are, all from one area, but we had somebody from Rent-A-Center, it was Paul Mativier from the Rent-A-Center group guys. We had somebody from Aaron's, and we were talking about that. I haven't had a group from Aaron's in a long time. There was R&R Tire Express who was doing the tire and wheel side. There was, somebody from Nationwide Direct in our group. There's somebody from APRO in our group. There's somebody from Great Rooms in our group. Like when you get all these voices together, what does it look like as you walk into one of these situations? You're walking into one of these meetings. Kind of help me walk through what would somebody expect that they're new? What does it look like when they open the door?
Well, one of the things to realize is that almost everybody you talk to, like a very good portion of them, especially when you're working with the legislative aides, they don't know the industry. So a lot of times you'll ask them, what is it that you already know about rent to own? And a lot of times they'll think it's housing, or they'll think it's, something they just have no idea. And so we get to explain what the transaction is and what it isn't. And then one of the biggest impactful things is just telling their real life stories. I'm in the storytelling business, so I kind of like that part, but
Yes.
we tell the stories of real people and how it's impacted the customers, the employees, the communities that we serve. It's all an important part in them seeing that it has a real life human impact, and it's not just a transaction. Like we talk about all the time, it's a relationship business, and that goes in every direction. So having that opportunity to come together and represent together and, have common ground and share stories, even amongst competitors. We can all come together and, share the same message.
How many industries do that, right? I mean, that's just one of those things where it's crazy. We have all kinds of people there that you would think that we're on the front lines, like battling each other, and we're all in lockstep, just saying, hey, in one voice, this is our industry. Let me educate you on that. So between 10 and 5, you have all these meetings. Charles, I've been asked this question before, and I can't think of a better person to ask this question. There are times when we're meeting and these lawmakers are not in office, right? So sometimes we get somebody in there where we're talking to directly, whether it's a representative or a senator. But then there are also some times that we get to the office and we're really kind of talking to the staff and not who we want. We think, hey, it's my first year, I'm going to talk to all these people. But I'm talking to a staffer. Help me and help the listeners understand. Why is it important to go in to see the staffers and be as open and very direct and like you're advocating to the senator or the representative themselves with the staffers versus, well, let me just put it away and I'll hold it here when they're really here. Like, why is it important to do it with them?
Well, to a certain level, they're almost as important to be speaking to as the actual member. I mean, you've got to remember these, there are 100 U.S. senators. There are 435 members of Congress. They've got a lot to do. They've got a lot they're supposed to be doing. We'll kind of leave that.
We'll talk about that in another podcast.
Yeah. But, you've only got a certain amount of bandwidth. I can't imagine what it would be like to be one of 2 senators for a state and have all of the issues that they've got, all the committee assignments. There's a lot. And so they really do rely on their staff. Their staff are really the kind of gateways. They do meetings weekly with them. They report back on what that they've learned. And really, in the event that something were to happen and we needed to make a phone call or get in touch with someone, we're going to reach out to that staffer. They're going to be our link. Another thing with the staffers, these typically become not institutionalized, might be the right word. They stick around. Like a lot of them do, and they become career staff where they will move up from being, a legislative aide to a legislative director to a chief of staff position. And once you get into those, they really start moving around. And so in lots of ways, the staffers will outlive the members in DC. And so there are many that we've been meeting with for years at different offices that they move over here after there's an election. You can look at the upcoming election. There are a lot of people that are members of Congress that are retiring. And so, you'll have kind of turnover with those staffers moving to different offices. And so having those relationships are really important because those will carry and they stay. And so there is no, the members are busy. Oftentimes we have meetings scheduled with a member and then they get called in for a vote. They get called in for a committee meeting. I can tell you pretty much every time I go to DC, there's a fire that they're trying to put out for some reason. And, you get moved to a different location if you're meeting with a member, or you get moved to a different time. And so it's kind of really par for the course with that. But the staffers are the ones that are really the key holders, and they're almost, if not more important, to be meeting with when we go to talk to them, because they're the ones doing the research and they're often the ones advising the member on issues. What votes look like, things of that nature. So those are really important relationships that we aim and try to cultivate when we're going up there.
Now, generally, we're between 10 and 5, so we have a lot of different meetings, and we'll meet probably 15, 20 minutes before we're off to our next one. We're going from one building to the next, and we're all over the Capitol Hill. Amberlee, one thing that you've always made sure that we did is we got to get a picture. We got to get cards. As somebody who is into the marketing and the communications, how important is that? What is the point of that? And how can we stress the importance of that to the people that are coming next year and say, hey, you need to do this, and this is why?
Well, there was two parts to the question in there, so I'll go with the pictures first because that's the more fun part for me. So it gives me content, which is really great. But it also, it's part of that being able to share it with everybody back at home, what's going on, why we're going, what we're doing. Thinking back to my first year, this is my third, just like walking around and looking at the grandness of everything and, just being able to have that feeling of walking through is something crazy. So if you can capture even just a little bit of that in a picture, I think it's something that can help others, know why they should come to. And then the business cards, I think, are important. Like we had one lady, we actually had 2 aides in this particular meeting. And I was really glad the second one was there. So the first guy got us mixed up with a later appointment in the day and thought we were there to talk about caskets.
Anthony, he thought we were there for funeral home arrangements. He said caskets. Yeah. We were like, no, we don't rent our own caskets. That was a thing.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then from there, he went into rent to own home. So, the other lady pitched in and she actually did know a little bit about, rent to own with the durable consumer goods.
She was like, let me save you from doing whatever you're doing. And it actually ended up being a great meeting because then we actually had a double meeting. We had some great legends that were in there, including Michael Bennett, who was kind of overseeing everything. And then we had some younger, I should say first time attendees with us that got to see like, hey, not just because it doesn't go everything according to plan doesn't mean that you bail out and stop, right? It's still important to get that message across. It's still important to advocate. It's still important to get their card. And then after we kick them out, you still get a picture with the rest of the group, right? Is that what we do? But it's something that they always ask me, like what, like if it's not them, why? And I completely resonate with that. Those staffers are there. There are a few people that I saw from the year before in offices that I hadn't been to, which is weird because you go to a different office and like, oh, I didn't see this guy, but I saw him in the hall and you say hi to those people. And I agree that makes a lot of sense to be able to at least be known. And as you're advocating, you want to be known through the halls by anybody who's going to see you and know you, especially when they have a senator or representative's ear every single day for their entire term. I mean, it just makes a difference. So I agree with that 100%. Now, talking about our first time attendees, which is something that I'm really curious about because I really want to ask you, Charles, some of our first time attendees was someone from the NSRA. When did they start? Like, if they're visiting all the time, I didn't know it. Is this the first time that the shed rental, how does it? It's the National Shed Rental Administration, or is that right?
NSRA, National Shed Rental Dealers Association. National Shed Rental Association.
So I mean, I didn't even know they were there, and all of a sudden I seen Nick, and I was like, oh my God, this is amazing that they're here helping us advocate for this industry. I mean, usually it is traditional wheel and tire, and then they're there. How did that happen?
Yeah, so NSRA has been they've been involved with APRO for a number of years. I want to say Ed Wynn helped them get started whenever they initially formed. I want to say they were 15 years ago. So he was very involved with them. They actually are an APRO member, so they joined. NSRA joined. They typically will do a board meeting, and so their presence has been increasing each year. They've been coming to the legal summit. We've been doing it at RTO World. They'll do a board meeting there, and they usually have a few people around. And so we've been kind of just coordinating a little bit. I go to their shows, typically their annual event in September, and we've just kind of been talking more with and expanding our relationship. And so it was really great that they decided to send Nick and Gerard up there this year to join us as part of it, because they fall under the same transaction we do. They are really look to us to help on the advocacy side of what we do, because it's the same thing. We're about protecting the transaction. That's our mission here at APRO. And so it is, it's just a new part of the industry that's there. They're all over the country. And they represent a pretty large portion of when we do evaluation. I think our numbers are about 12 billion for the RTO industry, the traditional and virtual side. With that, we're not capturing that. And so we're working on some things to look at some data for that, to see how much of an economic impact that they have. And so that's important. We go in and meet with a congressman or congresswoman and say, 1 out of 27 households uses rent to own. Well, that number may be a little bit higher because we're not capturing who may be out renting a shed as well. Right. When we say we've got a $12 billion impact, or we're responsible for this much in payroll or this much in taxes in your district, there's another element that they're contributing to that too. And so it's really good to have them there, because that's just another part and expansion of our market. We really do reach a lot of people, and a lot of people like what we offer, the flexibility of that transaction, and the sheds is just a unique aspect of it, and one that's doing pretty well and really meets people where they need and where they want to be with that option. So.
Well, I want you guys to know, if you are from the NSRA and you have anything to do with sheds and RTO, please reach out to the show. I am dying to talk to you. I would love to have a number of you go to this legislative conference next year at 27. I would love to see 33 new just from the shed side alone, because it's something I didn't know. I was completely fascinated, thought it was an absolutely wonderful idea for them to join us, and I would absolutely love to join them in some of the things that they have going on and what they do, because it's super important for us to, as a complete industry, just go to DC in one voice and let everybody know we are regulated in 47 states, and we're doing a darn good job of that. Let's sleep, just leave it the way it is. CFPB not included. But Amberlee, like when he said the key word there, or I should say, partially word there, the VRTO. There was something that we had talked about before that I didn't know that they were in on this either. Now, guys, I feel terrible that I didn't know this. And if you didn't either, hey, I know Anthony didn't know. But the thing is like, I didn't know the virtual rent-to-own and the sheds were already a part of what APRO was doing. They're a part of what we have already going on. And being a part of this organization is huge, but I didn't know that. And I want everybody listening to know that we are in one industry and they're already here. How big is that to have them here, Amberlee? I mean, they kind of snuck in on my back door. I didn't even know about it, but you did. You knew about what's going on. Is there going to be something going on in the future where we're going to kind of like sound that bell and say, hey, we are this one voice. APRO is going to, this newsletter is now going to incorporate maybe a shed side, maybe, a virtual side, an element of that. Is that that somewhere down the pipeline? Is that something that might have just come up on the podcast that we thought about?
Well, I mean, like you said, we are all one big family. We all have the same regulations. We all have the same, guidelines and the same transactions. So, it's something that you just have to get everybody together and to hash it out, talk it out. That's why we all get together and have that community aspect, so we can learn from each other, find out what's working good, what's working good over here that we could try out over there. And I think it's just important to have every different piece of our puzzle represented, and they are part of that. So you've got traditional, you've got virtual, you've got tires and wheels, you've got sheds, you got everything. So I think it's important for everyone to be represented.
Yeah, I do. I think it's great. I mean, and if you take a look at the numbers and the benefits that they are giving, as a matter of fact, you were talking about numbers a minute ago, what they're contributing, it is getting bigger every single year. It is not going away. And as a matter of fact, I see that their numbers they're escalating quite a bit. It didn't seem like at first it was going to be what it was. I don't think somebody thought about that in rent-own at one time either. Like, I didn't know it was going to be that. And then now these numbers, I mean, they're moving up. They are becoming very important in what we do.
Well, and they have been. I think it's a new industry that largely was started in 2013. Around that time, most of those companies were, and I want to say maybe around 2020. It was the last strategic plan, the one before our current version at APRO. We made that concerted or that effort and intentional decision that we were about the transaction. We were about these statutes. And if you fell under these statutes, then you were part of the tent. And so we've had virtual companies involved with APRO for the better part of the last 6 years, particularly with the like ASEMA, Progressive, Snap Finance joined last year. We literally represent, I want to say, about 80% of that market with those companies, along with some of our smaller ones. U-Own Leasing is another one. Daniel's Daniel's been a great addition for us, an advocate for us in DC. And so it's a really unique part, but it also just shows like the expansion of why that this transaction's so appealing to people, because it really does offer that ultimate flexibility. And so it has expanded the market considerably. That's why you're seeing so much growth on that side, because it's beyond the traditional brick and mortar location. They're in a Home Depot, they're in a Lowe's, they're in these other retail establishments that we've not traditionally reached. And so they're a huge and important part of it, but they fall under the same transaction. We've got several board members that are represent those companies and have the voice in our leadership as well. And so it's good to have them as part of this. And in DC, we can say that and really say, okay, we're reaching so many families. They rely on this transaction every day. And this is why the regulatory scheme that we have in place is important, why it's important to follow it, why it's important to have these disclosures, to have these consumer protections that are built into it, that everyone's following, because we're reaching more and more people. And I think that's going to continue to be the case, because this transaction is really designed. It's been great for the past, but it's really designed for the consumer preferences that we're seeing on the subscription model for the future and younger generations going forward.
Is there an idea or a goal to have these, because I couldn't tell you how many of the 100 are one side or the other, whether it be the shed side, whether it be the virtual rent to own. Is it safe to say that, next year, part of our goal from this year to next year is to get them more representation in the advocacy efforts that we do in DC and LegCon 2027?
I think the virtuals have been part of the association and part of LegCon really for the past 6 years, since most of them joined. And so we're adding a few every year, and there's, we'd like to see more. So we are speaking with that whole voice from them. But I think that's really the cool thing about this conference particular is how we bring everyone together. I mean, APRO, we're a huge tent. We've got publicly traded companies over here, all the way to the franchisors, to the franchisees, to the large independents, to the mid-size independents, all the way down to the single store operator. And then we throw in these other vectors out there, from tire and wheels to sheds to HVAC to really anything that falls under a durable goods category, anything that can be returned, can be subject to our lease purchase regulations. And so it's important to kind of keep that in mind. And that's really, we helped pass these statutes, and that is, we know them, and we're the ones that are really charged with being the stewards and protectors of that. And so that's why coming together, speaking with one voice, and kind of what's great about this conference is you're bringing in all these competitors. I mean, lots of times, like the teams you were just mentioning, you mentioned your Florida team. You've literally got, stores across the street from each other, and we could put that aside, could compete during every other day of the year. But whenever we come into legislative conference, when we come into the industry events, that goes aside, and we're really speaking with that one voice. We have the saying that it's kind of the LegCon slogan. It's let me make sure I get the Latin. It's basically strength and unity. Veritas Unite.
Anthony, we're gonna have to put that on the screen for everybody. But
yeah.
So another question that I get, and I think we've had this conversation, and I think we all have had this conversation, but for the listeners to just make sure that they understand, we talk about having 47 state laws, right? We're almost there. We're going to talk about a couple of states in a minute, but we almost have all of them down. So then why get together at DC? Why put everybody together at the Capitol Hill and talk to the people that are at DC, the senators, the legislators, their staff, if there is no federal law? What is the point behind that? And maybe you can explain that to me and to the listeners so that they have a good understanding why this means as much as it does.
Well, so that's part of the challenge, is that we're not pushing federal legislation. It was easy to get. I say easy, I wasn't there, but years past, we were getting 100 plus, and we were coming up and saying, we have this specific bill, we want you to vote for it. And that's a little bit of an easier task than I think we have now, when we're really, our call to action is, hey, it's kind of the saying of like, the best time to repair a roof is when the sun's shining. And that's kind of where we are. The house is not on fire, and we're not up there trying to put it out, which is a much different situation, and one that we are trying to very actively and proactively avoid by doing this. We're putting in the effort now. We're establishing those relationships. We're telling our story, what the rent-own transaction is, what we are about, and what we're not, and really clearing up any misconceptions. So if someone goes up and follows us next week, or in a couple months, or 6 months from now, and goes in and tries to characterize us as something else, the people we've met with and been establishing these relationships every year will know better, hopefully, to say, okay, well, or they know, hey, I met with Amberlee Maya from APRO, or I met with Pete Shau from R&R and the RTO Show. Let me reach out to them and see what they have to say about this. That's our goal, and that's what we're trying to do here. So there's really, it's a tough call to action, and we're wanting to go up there and say, hey, we're regulated on the state level. We want you to leave us alone. We are well regulated, and we're on the path to self-regulation through APRO. That's a position you want to be in, not putting the fire out. That's a totally different conversation, a totally different feeling than the ones that we get to have, like we had last week when we were in DC. And so we're trying to prevent that. And I could tell you probably, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the states, and it's a totally different environment and posture that we have to have when we're trying to put a fire out.
Well, Amberlee, I'm going to tell you what I think we missed is we should have brought some extra books when we were talking to some of the legislators. We could have, on top of our cards, we could have just slipped a book and be like, read it yourself. But so one of the last questions that somebody gave me that I really didn't have a good answer to was, we have 47 states. We don't have all 50. Would a federal law fix that?
Well, that was the goal. I mean, that for years, and that was really back in the early 80s when APRO was founded. The idea was to push that federal legislation to define rent to own, lease to own, that it is a lease, not credit. And that, what ran parallel to that effort was, we'll push the federal legislation, but we're going to go through and work on state regulation as well. And so eventually that state regulation took over, and we have almost, 47 of the 50 states at this point. That effort to define it under federal law as a lease became a little bit redundant or less necessary. And so that we haven't really been pushing that effort for several years. I think that the posture changed of, hey, we're happy with where we are. We don't need that. And in fact, I've heard the stories, and they're, referenced in the book where, and in some of the RTO Legends interviews, where people finally were talking with members of Congress about bills, and they were advised by those members, hey, you don't want us doing this, because if we do this, then we're your business and we can change it at any time. And you see how some of these bills, how you read these things about, you see what's going on with appropriations and how the things just kind of get stacked in and fall in on some of this large legislation. And when we're talking about really a couple, like a 1 or 2 line sentence is what we're really looking for of, lease to own is a lease, not a credit transaction. Those things are, there's a risk involved of having that federal legislation. I think that risk assessment has changed over the past few years, and that's why we're really focused on the state level, and still going to DC to tell them that we're well regulated, both on the state level and through our industry self-regulating itself through APRO best practices, code of ethics, those type of things that we're working on as the professional rental organization.
Let me ask you something. Are you getting everything out of your rent-to-own business? If you're not an APRO member, then the answer is probably no. Look, Advocacy is APRO's bread and butter. This is why they were created and what they do best. But here's the thing. APRO membership is about way more than advocacy. APRO connects you to the movers and the shakers of the industry, people who've been there, done that, and they can help you do it even better. APRO's monthly webinars give you expert insights and actionable takeaways. It's like having a masterclass for your business every single month. Got questions about complex regulations or sticky situations? No problem. APRO's legal hotline gives you direct access to experts who have got the answers. That's a peace of mind that you can't put a price on. And let's not forget the resources, news, updates, and tools that keep you ahead of the curve. Scholarships for your team? Check. Disaster relief when you need it most? Double check. APRO is your ultimate support system in the rent-to-own world. So stop settling for less. With APRO, members get more. More support, more connections, and more success. Head over to rtohq.org and join the APRO family today. Because in this business, more isn't just better. It's essential. See you at the top with APRO. So come towards the end of the day, not only do we get to leave at 5 p.m. because it's been a long day, we're on our feet all day, but then as we meet up, there's a couple things that were important. Number one, Amberlee, we had to scan something and make sure that we're kind of giving our feedback of these meetings and stuff. And I'm going to get your input on that. And then we had a couple of people who were on camera who had never been there before to kind of give their ideas and this, what happened that they didn't know about, they didn't see. What came out of that? Like, what did you hear? What's something that you hear that was like, you know what? I'm glad that I had that person here to kind of share their story a little bit, because I've seen it again on LinkedIn and on some of the social media sites and on, rtohq.org, where it's like these people really got something new out of it. They were like, oh my God, I didn't know. I didn't see this. So as you're gathering this information was, how important is that to not only collect it, but then show it out to everybody else and say, hey, this is what you can see at LegCon?
Well, I think one of the big things is, people come in and they're nervous to go and talk with legislators and thinking it's a big scary thing to go do. And, it's not like you're going to go stand in a courtroom or anything. You're just kind of talking with people. You're sitting around a table talking with people. And, whether it's the legislator or the aides, they're not coming down on you, especially if we're not there for an ask. They're super happy that we're not there for an ask. They're like, this is an easy conversation. Yeah. So when a new person comes in and realizes, that this is easy, these are people that are, making all these laws and, they're important, but I'm able to have an impact on, their opinion of the industry and making sure that, if something does come down the pike that, they can remember my face. That's what Shannon Strunk said during the debrief dinner, that, you make a connection with these people so that whatever it is, because a lot of them are from your area, you're meeting with people from your state. So you make some sort of connection with them so that if something comes down, they remember, I got to call Pete, I got to call Charles, because they made that connection with you. So it's the same thing with the first timers. They get to experience that firsthand. The common thing you hear a lot is that they're in awe of the process. It's an exciting thing to be a part of. It's a professional development opportunity. Getting to go and talk to these people that you may have never dreamed that you'd have that opportunity. So it's a lot of people telling those same types of stories, and I think it's important to record them so that we can share that with other people and get more attendees next year. So.
Well, I got to say, one of the attendees that I didn't know was Lauren Taliska, and I had no idea that she had never been there before. And as she's telling her story, which is one of the reasons why I brought it up, you could almost see the difference in her eyes. Like, I just did not know. And I think it was great to have that on camera. I think it's great to show somebody who's never been there before. Like, this is the difference between not knowing and actually advocating for the business. So I think you did a great job there. Just telling you, I think it was an amazing job to have people on there and to tell their story and to say, hey, in one voice, I got to join in on this with the guys, like you said before, Charles, people who've been here for years and years and years. And we're talking about people who are legends and people who have just showed up to DC for the first time in their lives, and we're all walking Capitol Hill together. I love that story. That means a lot to me. That means a whole lot to me. We actually got to share our first year together, Amberlee and I, and that was Anthony. I think I'm going to bring you along next year, just so you're aware. I'm going to have you walk the halls with us next year.
Absolutely. Let's do it.
We're just going to, you got to eyeball and record us in the areas you can. I don't know if we can, but we can make it happen. So there were a couple of states that we talked about, right? Because we're talking about all the grand things and we want to make sure that we're doing the right. There are a couple of states that right now we are looking at, because guys, if we didn't tell you why we're doing LegCon, this is exactly why. Things like this need to be in the forefront, and we want to know about it. Charles, we've got New York that just isn't seemingly going away right now. This is something that we've talked about last year, and we talked about it on the episode before that. It looks like we've got Senate Bill 1726 and Assembly Bill 4918. What is this? Where is it coming from? Why are they still there? We are not a credit transaction. They have regulatory laws in that state. What's going on right now?
Well, it's Groundhog Day in New York, and that's what it feels like. Because this is year 3 of this. In fact, I'm going up there in a couple of weeks for the 4th or 5th time to walk the halls and meet members on this. And I think New York's a really good cautionary tale, and really shows why our legislative conference at DC is so important. Establishing those relationships. The New York Rental Dealers Association had really been inactive for a number of years, and it's kind of fallen off. And this thing just snuck in, and it really is just a pure situation of really consumer group, legislators that are supportive of it or listen to it and put it in a bill form, that don't understand our business, that they don't understand our transaction. And we were characterized by someone else defined who we were, and they got there first. And so we're having to do a lot of the sun shining in DC like it was last week, and it was really hot. New York, the house is a bit on fire. And so the posture of the way that we have to go up there and present to that and really fight to do these educational things that we're doing in DC now, and we do every year, we're having to really make up for lost time in New York. And so that's just a situation where we're trying to be reclassified, where this bill says that we're a credit transaction. We're categorically not. And 47 states, including the state of New York, in their bill passed in 1987, says that we are not a credit transaction. But we've not been up there establishing those relationships. We've not been up there advocating, educating. The legislators that are there today were not there in 1987 when we passed the statute. Most of them weren't there in 2009 when we amended the statute. And we worked with the legislator on new language, on new disclosure requirements. And so that's just a cautionary tale. That's an active state. It's a place where that on one hand, we've had the CFPB that has changed a lot in the current administration in DC, that the vacuum is picked up on the state level, particularly the state attorney generals. And that's kind of there's a category or a characteristic example of what we're trying to prevent. And that, we're dealing with that in DC. That bill's still there. I think we're seeing some progress on it. I think our messaging is landing. There's some understanding as to what that we do and how that we're not like these new transactions that we got lumped in on this bill. And so there are some changes that are happening that are positive up there, and that our messaging is resonating. And so we're cautiously optimistic with what's happening there. But again, it's a lot of work, and it's a lot of like the preparation or the forward thinking, the being proactive. We missed out on it there, and there's a bit of a consequence that we're dealing with now. And I can tell you, I enjoyed my time in DC a lot more in having that proactive education conversations compared to hand me a bucket, we've got to throw it on this fire and keep trying to put it out, like I've been doing when I've been going up to Albany, like I'll be doing when we go up there in a couple more weeks to keep sharing the good news.
Well, and this is a good tale to be told. I mean, right now, what happens is everything was going good. 1987, we get this law passed. As things go on, the people in New York were like, well, I mean, there's really nothing else left to do. We don't need to do this all the time. The NYRDA kind of goes to sleep. And then as this comes up, we get, we kind of get a little bit of a ring of a bell from, our legal counsel, who's no longer with us. I really wished he was, but he's not. So we get a little bell, and that's we start picking it up. And like you said, it was a kind of almost after the fact instead of ahead of the fact, like we do in DC. Now things are just starting to pick up steam. We had the NYRDA reformed. Jeff Smith from Hometown RTA and Matt Radecki, they run that, but absolutely great guys. But Jeff Smith kind of leads that. Now he's on the president on the board. You go up there, and then we have a couple of other people from the RTO industry going up there. And it's like after the fact. After the fact, it's a lot more dangerous to deal with than up front. So if you ever wanted a reason to go to LegCon 2027, that is it. We do not want somebody describing the transaction that we know all too well to somebody who doesn't. And then what are we doing? We are putting out all kinds of fires, like Charles says, with a bucket on a big fire. And we don't want to do that. And, coming in the end, we have the CFPB director in the room. He decides to stop by. Number one, are we on the right track of keeping everything the way it is when we have somebody like that in the room? And how would you summarize what's going on in New York as of right now, and with a little bit of foresight? Like, is that something that we need to worry about, or we don't know yet, or is it something that we need to gather around, guys? We might be in New York, but I mean, is it something that we really need to worry about?
Well, I mean, we've taken New York very seriously. I mean, it's an existential threat there, and the complete mischaracterization, establishing it as a credit transaction, subjecting us to a usury rate, which is impossible. I mean, you can't put an APR on a lease. You just can't do it because there's neither a borrowing of money nor a fixed term to repay that money. And so having to repeat that and it's just been an exercise that just why it's so important. But really, New York is one of those states that they're very consumer protection active, which is good. I mean, we're for consumer protections, but they're also trying to be. It's a worry that almost we need to have a firewall there because it could spread, and that's why we've been taking it as seriously as we have, and are making the efforts that we're doing there to really tell the truth about what we are and what we're not, and to make those efforts. So I'm cautiously optimistic about that our messaging is landing there, and that we're having an effect. But it's extremely important. Like I said,
Yeah.
it changes the nature of our business and whether we can actually even do business in that state if this law were to pass. That's significant.
Well, it is important. We have a lot of people in that area that not only use this business, but they are employed by this business. This industry kind of reaches very far out into the New York area. So it's very important, talking to both of you and see what answer you guys come up with. As we come into this, I wanted to know, what is the single most important thing you want an RTO dealer who has never attended LegCon to hear today that might get them to show up next year?
For me, I'd say it's for everybody. So I came from the dealer side, and I kind of always envisioned it as something for like the higher ups. It's the owners that go down there and they handle that, and that's somebody else's job. But to see the reactions of the legislators and the aides when they're talking to people who are in it every day, I think is really important. So seeing, the managers who can share the stories of the actual consumers that they're working with, that's the actual constituents of the people that we're talking to, they have that more hands-on personal connection. So it's important for everybody to be there. Everybody has a good story to tell, especially in this industry. So that would be probably my biggest thing, is don't feel like you can't go because you're a manager, because you're, a different position. It's not just for the owners and home office people.
Charles, what would you say? What would be your answer to that?
So this year we kind of had a theme of, and we had this prompt that we asked everyone to share throughout the event, and in particular at the debrief dinner. And it was, I'm proud to be part of the rent zone industry because ... And I think it's absolutely impossible. That dinner is literally my favorite couple of hours of the entire industry calendar. Anything that time to hear people share that story. I mean, we're an industry of stories. That is our strength. And so we get to go to DC. That's what, and we get to, people ask what our stories are, and we've got some great ones. And so getting to kind of share that, be a part of that, but then I think what really underlies that, and what I think everybody that comes away from it, really, if there is a secret sauce to this, or what the common thing that I think everybody feels, is that real sense of pride in what we do, who we serve, those stories about the people that we help, the access that this transaction provides. And that's what we're up there fighting for. And that's why when you go up there and you fight for it, it's something worth fighting for. And I think everyone really comes away with that sense of pride. And that's where it brings it all together. You've got competitors sitting in the same room, speaking with one voice. And so, I think a lot of what we're doing and what we've been doing, I mean, that the
oh, there it is. He's got the book. That's it. Checkmate, man. He's got us.
This is a big part of it. I don't think you read this book without coming away with a sense of pride and being a part of this industry. I hope you don't. Hope you come away with it with a sense of pride. We don't want to triple negative this thing. And it's the same thing with legislative conference. I think that going up there and just being a part of it, walking the halls with new people, with experienced people, with different companies, different vectors of the industry, all of that, and really speaking with that one voice, it's a special time. And I think that once you go once, we have so many people that come back, and that is the reason I think that underlies it. This is usually not a one-off thing. I did this once. It was fine. I'm never coming back. We have a lot of return people, and I think that's a key for the rent zone business. That's what it's relationships, and relationships with each other, and we're establishing these relationships with our elected officials and those staffers. So that's where it hits.
Well, I agree with you. I'll tell you guys now why I do it, because I swear to you, every time that I go, we are making history in real time. That's what we do. And if we don't do this, somebody else is going to tell our story, just like Charles said. I believe that wholeheartedly. And from this podcast to you, I'm going to tell you guys, I really appreciate you being on the show. We are going to tell you our story, and the rent tone is really, really being done. Listen, I'll tell you guys, as always, you please Make sure that you subscribe to the channel. Make sure that you see us. We are everywhere that you want to be. Facebook and Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, where you're going to see this. You definitely want to go to the website, buy some swag. There is nothing better looking than one of these guys in the shirt. I have pictures of that on the website, by the way. So if you go there, make sure you get some swag. You want to buy something, always think about supporting the show, because this is how we get to talk about what we do. Everybody gets to come on the show and say in one voice, this is our industry, and I love it because. And I love hearing that. You know, whether what's one story or another, I love, like you said, that debrief dinner. Everybody had a different story to tell. And where would we be if we didn't have those legends walking side by side with some of the new people to say, hey, I might not be here this year or next year, you know, coming up soon. Shannon will be here for 40 years, but everybody else is going to be, you know, they might be out of the game, and it'd be great to have these people step up, including the VRTO, the HVAC, and the NSRA. I am so glad that they're a part of that. You know, I want you guys to know real quick, I appreciate it. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure that you go to rtohq.org. There is so much going on. You might get a newsletter. Charles, always a pleasure to have you on. Amberlee, finally on the show after so long. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you guys being on. I am glad that I was a part of LegCon 2026. And I'm going to tell you guys, as always, get your collections low to get your sales high. Have a great one.